For more than half a century, one name has haunted the world of true crime, a name that echoes through the decades like a whisper in the dark, a name spoken with fascination and fear, the Zodiac Killer, a faceless phantom who hunted in silence and in spoken riddles. He sent letters no one could fully understand, codes that mocked the police, and promises of more violence that never came. He wanted to be remembered, and he was... But what if everything we thought we knew about the Zodiac was wrong? What if the story that terrified a generation was never the real story at all? Because a new documentary has surfaced, one that dares to question everything. It suggests that the truth behind the Zodiac legend is darker, deeper, and far more human than anyone ever imagined. Between 1968 and 1969, Northern California lived in fear. The nights were quiet, too quiet. Young couples went missing on lonely roads. Lovers' lanes became crime scenes. And a killer, hidden in the shadows, began to write. He didn't just kill, he communicated. He sent letters to newspapers, filled with threats and cryptic symbols. Each one signed with a strange, haunting mark, a circle crossed through center. That symbol became his name. The Zodiac. He demanded attention. And America, terrified and captivated, gave it to him. For years, detectives chased ghosts. Reporters built legends. Amateur sleuths obsessed over codes that led nowhere. And through it all, the Zodiac's voice, cold, clever, almost playful, echoed through time. But the case never closed. And maybe it wasn't meant to. Now, decades later, Zodiac. The Lost Confession claims have uncovered what so many others missed. The filmmakers argue that the Zodiac wasn't one person at all. They believe the truth was fragmented, split between killers, imitators, and opportunists who turned murder into myth. Their investigation uncovered shocking inconsistencies. Letters written in different tones, on different paper, using words and phrases from entirely different regions. Some were mailed after the real killings had stopped. The team believes those later letters weren't written by the killer, but by others. People who wanted to keep the fear alive. People who discovered that the Zodiac didn't need to kill again to stay powerful. Because by then his story was unstoppable. He had become an idea. An immortal creation made of fear and fascination. The filmmakers dug deeper, using technology the original investigators could never have dreamed of. Artificial intelligence analyzed handwriting patterns and voice samples with near-perfect accuracy. Forensic linguists compared sentence structures and word choices across decades of correspondence. And what they found was chilling. Some of the Zodiac's letters contained information that had never been released to the public. Details only a handful of police officers and journalists could have known. Was the Zodiac working alone? Or was someone inside the system helping to shape his legend? Feeding his story from the inside. Letter by letter, headline by headline, the documentary doesn't give easy answers. But it exposes a pattern, a chain of clues that suggests the Zodiac mystery may have been fueled not just by evil, but by human ambition, curiosity, and the hunger for fame. And then the story takes a haunting turn. Midway through the film, a single question begins to emerge. Why are we so obsessed with the Zodiac? Why do we turn monsters into icons, killers into legends? Psychologists in the documentary describe it as the darkness we can't look away from. They say we search for meaning in the chaos, because deep down we fear that evil might not be extraordinary, that it might be ordinary, that it might look just like us. The Zodiac, they say, became a reflection, not just of a killer's mind, but society's own fascination with fear. Every time a headline screamed his name, every time a code was printed, the myth grew stronger, and the real truth slipped further away. Maybe the Zodiac didn't survive because he was brilliant or lucky. Maybe he survived because we kept him alive. But the documentary's final act is where everything changes. The filmmakers claim to have discovered a lost audio recording, hidden in a forgotten box from an old police archive. On it, a man's voice. Calm, measured, almost disturbingly ordinary. He introduces himself simply. I am the Zodiac. No madness, no laughter, just calm. He speaks about how he learned to control the media, how he realized that a single symbol, his symbol, could make the world tremble. He describes watching people panic, watching detectives chase shadows, and knowing he'd become larger than life. Then, in a tone almost satisfied, he says, "They made me a legend. I just gave them something to believe in." The filmmakers stop the tape there. They don't reveal more. They say the authenticity is still being tested. But one thing is certain. The voice, real or fake, sounds hauntingly confident, as if whoever made it knew exactly what kind of story we wanted to hear. And that's where this documentary challenges not just the Zodiac mystery, but true crime itself. Because maybe the Zodiac wasn't the only one writing a story. Maybe the world helped him. The newspapers that printed his letters. The detectives who leaked rumors. The public that couldn't stop looking. All of us, building a myth brick by brick, word by word. The film ends on a chilling thought. That the Zodiac's greatest weapon wasn't his gun or his knife. It was us, our fascination, our fear, our need for the story to continue. Because even 50 years later, we're still here talking about him, still decoding, still wondering. And maybe that's exactly what he wanted. For half a century, the Zodiac Killer has been the ultimate mystery, the face of evil without a name, a ghost story wrapped in evidence and obsession. But maybe the truth was never about a single man. Maybe it's about how legends are born, how we create monsters out of fear, and then feed them with attention. The Zodiac didn't just write letters. He wrote a story, one that we're still trapped inside. And as long as we keep searching for him, as long as we keep saying his name, he never truly disappears. Maybe the Zodiac's final message was never in code. Maybe it was hidden in plain sight, in our own reflection. So what do you believe? Was the Zodiac one man or many? A killer or a creation? Maybe the truth isn't locked in an old cipher or buried in a police file. Maybe it's right here, in our endless fascination with the unknown. Because sometimes the scariest part of mystery is realizing that it doesn't want to be solved.